What's going on, guys? This is Misfit, and today we are going to be doing our Overwatch League 2022 Power Rankings. I decided, what the heck, why not? Let's just do this. It's going to be fun. It's a good debate. We can talk about it for a while until Thursday when we start talking about matches. I decided to do the power ranking thing. I'm going to give you guys my my 20, 1 to 20. We did the team previews. I went over it a little bit in the last couple days. I might have adjusted things here and there. I also got ranking list for each region, North American region and the East region. We're going to have that going on, and we're going to do that in just a second. First, I want to thank you guys for joining me. All of you guys that have been supporting me, thank you very much. If it's been for 1 day or for 5 years since I started this thing, thanks a lot. If you're new, thanks a lot for stopping by. I do Overwatch League content 2 to 3 times a week during the season. It could go more depending on how things work out with schedules. I don't know exactly how I'm going to work the APAC thing because they got a lot of games in a 2-week span. So we might do 2 separate episodes, 1 East, 1 NA during those 2 weeks. I haven't decided yet. Might be some more episodes. But thanks a lot for stopping by. All right, let's talk a little news first because we do have something that does affect power rankings and rankings overall and the season. There have been rumors and this and that and whatnot and what have you about the Hunters. So I believe it was on Saturday they finally did something, at least as far as we know. They released Aprita, Yevatol, and Faraway 1987 to clear up some salary or some money, just literally money for their parent company, because I guess their parent company has dropped 87%. It's something with streaming in China, some things that I don't really get into or know about, but I know there's restrictions and things like that, and they did something where their stock dropped 87%, which is pretty much killing the company. But this is tragic, if you ask me. Aprita, big rookie coming in. Him and Leave would have been phenomenal to see. You lose 2 supports. They had 4. They could have used to get rid of 2 of them anyway. Now, in that whole exchange where they got rid of 3 guys, they did pick up Daisy from Team Chaser. We talked about that when we did the Hunters preview, saying, they had this guy down there, and if they needed an off-tank, which they do, and then they brought him up. They needed to get rid of a couple of the support players. Let's be honest, there was 4 of them. They needed to get rid of them. But the shame of the whole thing is I liked Yevatol. I thought he was good, but he had issues, so it stands to reason they were going to get rid of him. There was a whole thing last year. And not being able to see Aprita and Leave together is going to suck. So now that they have their DPS line is just going to be Leave and Jinmu, and they're just going with 6 players right now. So I can understand that from a financial standpoint. It's just kind of sad to see, and it did affect my opinion on what they could do and what they're going to be able to do as far as Overwatch 2 goes and the new season. So that's the unfortunate thing with the Hunters. It finally happened. All right, let's get into the power rankings. Overview. This is how we're going to do it. We're going 20 to 1 as always, as everybody else does. Going to do a quick little couple of sentences on each team. And then at the end, I will give my rankings for the East and North America, just so you get a picture. I mean, you can figure it out, but I'll just throw it up there. Here's the list, guys. Start getting mad, start molding, whatever team you're a fan of that you think I did you a disservice, start going. Start typing, hit the keyboard, do whatever you got to do. Let's start talking about it. I'm ready. Fuck's giving her 0. Let's have fun with this. Let's start off with number 20. I have the Vancouver Titans. Vastly improved from last year. Aspire, I think, is going to be decent for them. I think they have a couple other pieces, young pieces that could be good, but they're just not going to cut it in North America or overall. They're not going to cut it with the teams and the improvements that some of these teams have made over the last. They got a couple of young prospects and Massa. I mean, Sicko is supposed to be really good. He was like one of the best DPS in Europe. But I just don't see it cutting it against teams like Washington, even New York with what they have, Houston, Boston. They're going to do better than they did last year, win-wise. There are more games, so that works in their favor. But overall, number 20, Vancouver Titans. Let's move on to 19. 19, I have another team, same positions kind of as last year. London Spitfire, number 19. Underwhelming roster to me. They did pick up another support in Landon, but I don't know if that's going to help or what. I just don't see it. You have Hadi, Poco, they're okay. Everything's okay, but the thing is like I said see what I said about Vancouver. It's okay is not going to cut it when you're playing Dallas, Gladiators, Shock, Houston. It's not going to work. They're all going to be playing together, though, this year, which is better than last year, where they were playing on 9 billion ping from all corners of the globe. But even that being said, I don't see them much better than Vancouver. It's debatable. Now, next team, we have number 18. I have the Guangzhou Charge. Upon looking at it further, I just think from a team standpoint, I think Guangzhou's going to finish in last in APAC. I don't like a lot of components on his team. Choi Se-won's great. Eileen is decent. Everything is kind of decent, but not good enough. And the people they picked up were decent, not quite good enough. In Unique and Molly. I don't find that thrilling in any way, shape, or form. Their tank line, Krong, had an off year last year. Rio is just Rio for the 1,000th year on this team. Players are middling players in a conference where you have Shanghai, Seoul, Philly, the Spark, and even Chengdu with the loss of players. You're not going to beat that. I think them and the Valiant, I have the Valiant above them. It's debatable whether one's better than the other. It really is. But I don't see them going much higher. Which brings us to number 17. We have the LA Valiant. They revamped their roster. They got a couple of good components. They got Dia. They have some other stuff going on there that looks pretty nice. I don't know what's going to happen if they pick anybody else up. But they obviously have a better roster than they did last year. I mean, they got Colist, Langsa. Sassins are only tank right now. That's the frightening part. They got 9 billion DPS. Okay, you might need all that, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to win games in APAC. You're playing each team once, so you probably have 4 losses there. Same thing with Guangzhou. And I'm being generous saying only 4 losses for both of these teams. They're improved, but they're not improved enough to move too far up the standings. I have them up one notch because I'm just less impressed with the Guangzhou Charge. Now, let's move on to number 16. All right, guys, start Malden. I'm not buying Scrimbucks, okay? I said this in their team preview. I feel that this team is leftovers from a nice restaurant. At one point, a lot of these guys were good. The only thing this team has going for it right now is their support line and Twilight and Choron, which could be a top 10 or top 5 support line. We don't know right now. It's unproven, but the rest of the components on the team, I'm not impressed with. You guys can be impressed all you want with Alvo and Muse and guys like that and Hotba. It's literally, they could call themselves last night's leftovers, like the old contenders teams, because that's what this team is. They're guys that they're gone from the other teams for a reason. I'm gonna leave it in at that. And there are a lot of teams in that same boat where they have guys from other teams. But what I'm saying is Hotba's on his 6th team in 5 years. Muse got cut by the Gladiators. Hisu, I think, is vastly overrated. I'm not saying he's bad, but people are putting him on the level with some of these guys on Dallas and Shanghai, and no, he's not. Is he the carry for this team? If he is, that's bad, because I don't see it. If your Sombra player's your carry, I mean, I'm not just saying he's a Sombra player, but what I'm getting at is I don't buy this team. I think this is a false narrative. The Scrimbucks, I don't buy Scrimbucks anyway. It's like buying preseason games in football, basketball, or spring training in baseball. Just don't. Yeah. Number 16, Toronto. Very low compared to everybody else. Number 15 on the list, I have the Boston Uprising. Boston, I think I reevaluated Boston a little bit. I had them up a little bit higher than I probably should have. I think they're going to be better than they've been. Last year, they did have a decent enough year. I believe they squeaked into the playoffs because the Mayhem were tragic. And they beat them out by 1 game. But Boston, they did do some things. They have Striker. Striker's good for a carry win a couple of times a year. But you have decent components, but I don't think it's decent enough to skyrocket them way up into the rankings. They could improve, and they could do better than I expect, but right now I just see them at 15. Marv 1 is good. Everybody's good, but not great. I think Crimzo's probably one of the best Western supports, and if you're relying on him to be the best player on your team other than Striker, I don't know. You got MCD. He had a bunch of crap go on. It's just there's a lot of stuff going on here. Punk's decent. Everybody's just decent. They're not good enough to warrant a high ranking in my book. So I have them at number 15. All right, let's go with the next team on the list. We have at number 14, the NYXL. I moved them down a little bit lower. I kind of had them in a 12 range. I had to reevaluate them a little bit. I like what they got going on. I think they have a good base. Kellen, going to be decent. Your support line is good, but there's no main support. Big problem. Especially with the talk of Lucio and whatnot and what have you. You have Gangnam Jin and Myeongbong. All right, that's good. Yaki, Flora, great. Vulcan, unproven commodity. There's a possibility this team could be really good. But for right now, I'm pumping the brakes on them, and I'm backing them down here. Would I be surprised if they moved into the top 10 by second stage, third stage? No, I wouldn't. If they pick up a main support, I think it would vastly change my outlook on them. But for right now, I have them at number 14, and this is going to surprise the people a little bit. My next pick, at number 13, I have the Paris Eternal. I think bringing in Glister and adding him to this roster I think he got a bum rap in San Francisco. He played on a crap team in London in 2020. So I think this is a good place for him to go and show what he's made of. This team is going to be decent. They have a good back line with Dredro and Khan. Their tank line is decent enough. It's not the greatest, but I like it as well. I like Dan and Vestola. And then you have a decent DPS line with the addition with Naga and Glister in there. So you got a decent mix here. I think this is going to be a decent enough team. Are they going to set the world on fire? No. I think this is a good place for them. They could fall. I'm not going to lie about that. I think they could fall. But you know what? I have more expectations for Paris than most people. Let's just put it that way. So I have them at number 13. Next up on the list, number 12, we have the Washington Justice. Washington's a curious case. They always have good players, and this goes to they're the Hangzhou of the West, as I've said. They have the talent, they have the players, they have all these components that should do really, really well, but they fail. I think in the middle right now is a good place to put them at the beginning of the year because of those uncertainties. They have good players. They have a chance to move up. I really, really do think that. I may be underrating them a little bit. I think that the normal problems that we have with this team, at least in the last couple of years, you got Krillin and Opener as your supports. Vigilante doesn't come in until July. So after that, it might be a different story. They could just... Vigilante is as good as people say he is. I think this team is going to look a lot better. Krillin, honestly, to me is an unproven commodity. You don't know what you're going to get with him. Closer... I knew I was going to make that mistake, damn it. But I'm not thrilled with it. Mag is good. Kalios is steady. But are they going to be world beaters? I just don't see it right now. If I see a couple of games and I see them start to play to their potential, there isn't stupidity and they kind of grasp the meta, which they did not do at all last year. They get some synergy going, Decay's in the right mindset, etc. and what have you with this team. You could see them move up. But right now, 12 is where they should be. Now, the next team on the list, we have at number 11. Surprise team for many, probably. But I have the Florida Mayhem. Probably a little high on this team, like I had a couple other teams a little low. I think I have maybe a little bit high, but I like the addition of Exy. I don't know when he could get into the country, if he's going to play on ping, but if he plays on ping, it's going to be a little bit of a problem, but he's a really, really good addition if he can pick up where he was in 2020. I think that's just what they needed. They needed a little firepower on the DPS line. Checkmate is allegedly playing really well. Hydron is supposed to be really, really good. I think that looks good. Their support line is probably the biggest question on this team outside of Adam and someone playing the tank roles. Adam was good a couple years ago. You haven't heard too much about him, but he was always pretty solid. Although they say is picking up Doomfist pretty well, and he's looked pretty good in scrims, but I don't buy into scrims. So to me, although as people have said, he's good, but he wasn't great at times. This is kind of I'm going out there by having them almost in the top 10. But Florida, I have at number 11. Number 10, I have the Chengdu Hunters. Now, I would have had them probably 5 spots higher if Aprita, Yevitol, and Faraway were all there. I think those guys would have made a big difference, especially Aprita, because you would have had a DPS line of Aprita, Jinmu, and Leave. You would have had all the bases covered. You could have done a lot more stuff than you can now. I think you're kind of pigeonholed into doing certain things with Jinmu and his hero pool. They did add an off-tank. What level he's at, I'm not 100% on that. But it just is disappointing, and I don't know what the attitude and the feeling is on the team. If some of these other guys think they're going to leave, I just feel like they have a lot of talent on this team. Without Aprita coming in, it puts a damper on my expectations and where I think they could finish. I just think this puts them right back. It literally puts them back to where they were last year. And good, but if metas shake down for them in certain ways, they're going to be great. If they don't, they're going to get owned, which is what kind of happened last year. They did go through APAC pretty decently, but once the playoffs came and stuff like that and other teams ran the stronger comps than what they were running at times, they just got owned. So that's where I see the Chengdu Hunters at number 10. Now let's move into the top 10. At number 9, I have the San Francisco Shock. Okay, a lot of guys are really, really high on them. This is a tempered enthusiasm for what could possibly happen. I have them at 9. I don't see them better than Shanghai, the Glads, Dallas, Seoul. They're not on that level. The other teams they could punch up or maybe go down depending on what happens. They have Proper on their team. They have Violet. Kaluge is not an issue, but a question for me to see what he can do. And Finn is supposed to be really good too. I mean, obviously these O2 Blast guys, Kilo, they're Proper, they're fantastic players. Proper obviously is a Rookie of the Year candidate, but you don't have a main support player, and if you're relying on Violet Lucio, I'm a little afraid of that. It's better than some other teams that don't have one, period. So I guess you have that angle, but the Kaluge and no main support, it kind of tempers my enthusiasm a little bit for them, but I do think they are going to be really good. All right, here's my reach so far. At number 8, I have the Hangzhou Spark. Yeah, I said it out loud. I'm pretty sure it's a lot of hopium going on with this pick, with this eye, but if this team can get their ducks in a row and play up to their potential, they have so many good players on this team. They should do something. Gushui's good. I mean, you got Shy, Pineapple, Alpha Yi. You have Irony and Super Rich. Okay, so you could give me a little crap with that one. You have Ligue as well, and Bernard. Bernard, I'm on the fence with, but we're going to see what happens here. I think that they could do some damage and make some noise. And with Chengdu dropping down a little bit, they're primed to take on the Phillies and maybe Seoul. I don't know about that. That might be going a little crazy at this point, but I think they're going to be good. They could very well disappoint me to the point where I get mauled, but I have high expectations for this team. I think they're going to do really good. I do have them pretty damn high, probably higher than most. I will say that. Next, at 7, I have the Philly Fusion. Biggest issue with Philly I think the rookies that they got coming in are going to be great. The support line is unfortunate at this point because they lost Alarm. If Alarm was there, I would have them probably 3 spots higher easily without even blinking an eye. Maybe even higher than that. Going in with Aim God and Fixa, I don't know about that too much. Fury obviously is good. I have no problems with that. Their DPS is going to be cracked. I think they're going to be fighting with Seoul and in APAC. I just think there's a few North American teams that are better than they are right now. And that's why I have them, quote-unquote, so low. Lower than most. I think MN3 and Zest and Carpe is going to be a sick trio. Fury's really good, but your supports are kind of... I mean, the last we heard of Aim God was God knows how long ago. And Fixa's an unproven commodity, and so is Belosera. But I do think there's potential for this team. Like I said, they're going to be fighting in APAC. They're going to be in playoffs. And as this team gets synergy and maybe they get a different support later on in the year as guys start playing Overwatch 2, they find a flex support that they could trust or something like that other than Aim God, and they bring him in. I think that could really seal the deal for them as far as being talked about a little bit higher than they are, that I'm talking about them right now. I'm not saying they're bad by any stretch. I like what they did. I think if they don't do it this year, I think they have building blocks for the next couple of years with guys like Zest and MM3. Let's move on to the next team on the list. Number 6, I have the Houston Outlaws. Some of you guys are going to say I have them really high. Yeah, I'm buying into the Houston Outlaws this year. It doesn't happen too often where I buy into Houston, but this year I like what they got going on. They could get a couple more parts, sure. I think that on the whole, though, with what you could possibly run, Piggy on tank by himself, it could be good enough. Could be. Depending, if they get into a hard rush meta, you're kind of screwed. You're going to need a Reinhardt type guy. But right now, I like what they're doing. I do. Dante, Pelican, and Merritt is going to be a sick trio of DPS guys. No main support, but Iris and Lastro have a decent enough hero pool. I feel confident in what they can do. And also, Junkbuck is their coach. And I think he's coaching by himself this time. And I think there's a lot to look at with this team where they can do some damage. I think they're going to be able to challenge at points, not necessarily beat all the time, but your Dallases, your Gladiators. They're going to give them fights. It's going to be a good season for the Houston Outlaws. You could see a couple scenarios where they lose in the playoffs again. Sorry, Houston fans, but I do feel, though, that they are better than I think some people are giving them credit for. I am worried about them being short on a couple of different covering base type scenarios without a main tank and a main support, but I have them up pretty high. They could be anywhere from 8 to this range to 7, or 9, I should say, depending on if things work out or not. We have Houston at 6. The next team up at number 5, I have the Atlanta Reign. Atlanta's going to be good this year. Just like last year, I kind of underrated them a little bit, but I feel pretty comfortable having them in the top 5. I feel like Gator and Hawk got all of your tanks covered. You got Kai Nero, Venom, one of those unknown quantities in a rookie. Same thing with your support line in OG and Ultraviolet, but they have synergy together, so I'm not as worried about that as I am with some of the other teams. This team is going to be good. If we get into that Rhine Rush stuff, they know how to do that. They're going to challenge Glads, Dallas. They're going to give these teams all they can handle. They have playoff experience. Even the guys that weren't on the team last year, as far as that they brought in, Nero, he has some playoff experience. OG and Ultraviolet, they've competed at a high level. Venom, you could say that Venom did as well, but I mean, Contenders is a totally different animal, but I like where this team is going too. They have more bases covered than Houston, which is why I have them higher. I do believe that they will be one of those teams that we're looking at come the playoff cycles when they come in, or the tournament cycles when they come in. We're going to be looking at them right in the mix. I don't think they're going to fail this year. I love what this team looks like. I know they're going to have some attitude, and it's going to be great. I have them solidly at 5. I just think there's a couple teams that are better than them. Now, let's move up to number 4. I have the Seoul Dynasty. I'm buying into Seoul this year. I am liking what they're doing. This is a team that has one tank, but it's Smurf. To me, some people think it may be lateral gesture to Smurf. I think Smurf is fantastic, has a great hero pool. He can play what you need. I don't know about his off tanks, but I feel like he played some. Not saying that he's going to be able to own on Diva or Sigma or something like that. But when you have Prophet and Fitz, and then you add in Stalker on DPS, you're looking really good. You have top 2 DPS line. Maybe you could call them tied with Shanghai with Lip and Fleta, Prophet and Fitz. Interchangeable. You can make arguments for both. You add in Stalker to that mix. I think that's a nice addition. Vindium and Creative. Probably the weakest point on your team is going to be these two guys. They would have had Jonak on here, but he retired. I would have liked it a lot better. I might have even had him one up more. Vindium, obviously rookie, good in Contenders, unproven quantity. Creative, we know what Creative is. He's not going to wow you. He's not going to take over matches like some of these other flex supports are going to do, but he's going to do his job decently enough, and that could be all you just really need him to do. at this point. Flex support's going to be fairly important, though. You might want a little bit more. Maybe they go out and get somebody from Contenders or somewhere like that. That's my thoughts on Seoul. Number 3 team, we have the Dallas Fuel. Dallas is going to be, I said this before, they're going to be in the mix fighting for championships. This team is built for that. We all know what they got. Sparkle, Doha. You add in Edison, and you have Griot. You have a good DPS line. I'm assuming you're going to see mostly Doha Sparkle. Their tank line's probably the best in the league, bar none. You can make arguments for maybe one of the teams above them. But Hanbin, Fearless, they'll be able to cover whatever you want at a high level. These guys are great. So they have that going for them. Support line. You have unknown quantity in Chio, rookie, but you also have Fielder in there. So you're set. I feel like you're set. If Chio can play a decent enough Lucio, if that's what they use, Fielder's going to take care of your flick support things at a high level. They're going to be fighting for championships and being in the mix in every tournament. At least they should be at this point. And that includes mid-season, playoffs. You're going to be seeing Dallas hanging around these areas. All right, 2 teams left, guys. At number 2, I have LA Gladiators. This team should be fighting Dallas, Atlanta, Houston, some of these teams for NA supremacy. I think right now, I feel like they're the best in the West with the components that they have. I love Kevster. I think he's going to be probably the carry on this team as far as DPS goes. You add in Ons and potentially Patapan if he lives up to the potential that he had before he went to Valorant and then came back. I think he's going to be a good addition. Your support line is sick with just Shu alone. And then you add in Funny Astro, who's a Lucio main. So you have your bases pretty much covered there, and then you add in Skewed if you need like a top-notch Brigitte. Space. He's going to cover all the things that you need. They should be in the finals for tournaments. I look at this team and go, this team is ready to win right now. At the end of the year, we better see them in the playoffs, in those tournaments, in the finals. If they go to a Final Four thing, I would be shocked if I did not see them in there. It would be a disappointing year for them. Then that goes for Dallas, too. The other teams are going to fight it out. There's in that middle range. But these top 3 teams, I think these are the teams that are going to be in the mix for the grand finals, the championship, taking home the trophy, etc., and what have you. But the Glads are definitely poised to do this. All right. Obviously, 1 team left. We know who I got. I had them last year in the top spot. I have them again. Shanghai, reigning champions. Didn't change anything. Changed a couple of bench guys, but they didn't have to. Fate, Void, Fleta, Lip, Li Zhegong, Izayaki. If you find a flaw in there, please tell me, and I will shoot you down. And if you say Fate, you're wrong. This team, to me, is by far and away in APAC the best team. They could win possibly, I think in NA they would be the best team. They're the best team overall. But what I'm saying is I don't think any team would be close in NA either. I think at times you could beat them. I'm not saying they're infallible, but it's going to be very, very hard to beat this team with the talent that they have on it. You have guys that are MVPs. You have guys that, I think everybody on their team at one point in the last 2 years, except maybe minus Izayaki and Lee, maybe their support line, maybe Li Zhegong. But I think pretty much your tank line and your DPS line have either won or been involved in MVP discussions. Most of them are role stars. It's just hard to go against this team. I love what they're going to do. I can't wait to see this. That's my top 20. All right, here's the breakdown for East and West. I'll throw those up on the screen. It's pretty self-explanatory. They're in the same order. They're just obviously teams removed. But here we go. There's my power rankings. Take it with a grain of salt, a grain of something. For some of you, it might be a migraine. I had fun doing this, trying to figure out where to put these teams. And it's such an unknown quantity this year. Who knows? Vancouver could be better than Shanghai. We don't know. New game. But it was fun. And I'm ready for the debates. And let's talk about teams and all that stuff. And then on Thursday morning, we'll have our first episode for the beginning of the Overwatch League season. I will be previewing the matches. I have a couple of big ones. I'll I'll let you guys know, obviously, at the start of the next episode. I haven't really narrowed it down to, I want to do 2. Since we just have North America for the first couple weeks, I might do 3 matches over the whole weekend since we have a lot more games than normal. And I might break the previews up into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like we used to do a long time ago when we had a lot of matches. But, all right, guys, so that's going to do it. I'd like to thank all you guys for joining me. All you guys have been around for a long time or for 2 days or however long. Your support's greatly, greatly appreciated. If you're new and you made it all the way to the end of the episode, thanks a lot for sticking around. If you hit a like, hit a subscribe, that would be fantastic. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody stay safe. Have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you on the next one.